Long before he stopped playing, Robinson was politically active. Equipped with strongly held views about the course that black America should take, he seldom flinched from criticizing those with whom he disagreed. One such case involved a rebuke of famed actor and activist Paul Robeson in 1949 before the House Un-American Activities Committee.
I've been asked to express my views on Paul Robeson's statement in Paris to the effect that American Negroes would refuse to fight in any war against Russia because we love Russia so much.
I'll never forget a day when he had lunch with Eleanor Roosevelt at the United Nations. During the day, and in the evening, he stole 2 bases of Sal Magley. I don't know too many ball players who've had a day like that.
Even in retirement, Robinson remained one of America's most prominent black men. He was vice president of a national restaurant chain, founded a bank in Harlem, and campaigned for political causes he believed in.
And I say to you that there is not one Negro, not one that I know in this country, that has it made until the most underprivileged Negro in St. Augustine, Florida has it made.
He was never afraid to speak out. He had a regular column for a long time in the New York Post and in the Amsterdam News, in which he was able to make his views on civil rights known.
When I called Robinson in the mid-'60s, one of the first questions he asked me was, just out of curiosity, how many blacks or Negroes are on your staff? And that wouldn't have been hard for me to answer because we had none. And Robinson's answer was hot. I thought so.
I don't like to see young Negro kids of 7, 8, 9 years old being thrown across the street by the force of a fire hose.
He took that prestige and placed it squarely at the disposal of the civil rights movement. He was very eager to join the fray.
Jackie would make tours across the South and make free speeches at banquets for the NAACP and other civil rights organizations.
It was not the popular thing to do, but he did it, and he did it at great risk.
And I have been moved by the cause that brings so many of you out day in and day out, putting your lives on the line so that America can be free.
He was almost apologizing for not being able to take one step further and be actually, face to face with the batons and the snarling dogs and the fire hoses and so on. That's what I think, above all, he wanted to do.
There'd been some church burnings and little kids killed. And boy, he looked at me with fire in his eyes. He says, "How long do you think we're going to take this before we react?"
He played politics the way he stole bases, with elements of daring and surprise. Neither party was sure when, how, or for whom he would campaign.
Jackie Robinson was a political free agent, and he knew the value of being uncommitted, committed to justice, committed to a certain political agenda, but not to be taken for granted by one party or another.
He felt that if all blacks simply voted for the Democrats would be able to take them for granted. And so he felt they needed a strong presence in the Republican Party. You'll hear the same thing somebody like J.C. Watts today.
I said, but Jack, there are lots of issues. He said, there are pressure groups working for all of them. I am a one-man pressure group for civil rights.
Nixon had really courted Jackie Robinson for many years. There's a whole series of letters that Nixon wrote to him in the late 50s. Nixon, being a shrewd politician, recognized that having Jackie Robinson on his side would help to win some of those black votes, which almost always went to the Democrats.
He was appalled when Kennedy freely admitted that he really knew nothing about blacks. He would try to sort of work up a knowledge, but he didn't know blacks.
Chester Bowles, a prominent Democrat, had arranged in Connecticut an evening with Jackie Robinson and John Kennedy. He said, Mr. Robinson, being from New England, I haven't known many Negroes. Jack said, I thought, being in Congress for as long as that fellow was in Congress, he should have made it his business to know Negroes.
He felt that Kennedy wouldn't look at him in the eye, that Kennedy was evasive.
In the fall of 1960, when Martin Luther King was arrested during a sit-in in Atlanta, it became clear to both parties that the candidate with the stronger stance on civil rights would win the November election.
He said, I talked with Nixon's people, or he may have said, I talked to Nixon. I told them they needed to make some response. He said, I pleaded with them, and they never said a word.
Nixon's other advisors said, no, don't do that. You'll alienate white voters. And Nixon listened to them.
It took John Kennedy picking up the phone, calling Coretta when Martin Luther King was arrested, to give a wake-up call. That was one telephone call probably swung that election. And any of us who were not personally involved with Nixon immediately swung to Kennedy. Jackie happened to have been personally involved.
Kennedy's gesture toward the black population at the 11th hour won the day on November 8th, and Robinson's image as social pioneer was discarded like so much unused GOP confetti.
Jackie went from finding himself a decade before a symbol of social progress to seeing himself called an Uncle Tom, reviled by people who I think he had helped to, in a way, set free. And that hurt him tremendously.
Concerned that the tide of social reform could swing either way in the early 1960s, Robinson peppered the JFK administration with warnings that a new radical generation of civil rights leaders was bent on racial progress by any means necessary.
Today we're telling them clear in their mind, if you touch us with your hand, we're going to break your arm.
So here comes the black Muslim movement, which says that whites are blue-eyed devils and is pushing a gutter anti-Semitism. Robinson was appalled by that, simply appalled.
He was the only one that I know who criticized Malcolm X and took him on within his own world. He said that Malcolm's vigilante, don't tread on me, posture was phony. You've never been on the front lines. I know how tough that is. I have gone down to Birmingham, and I've gone down to Selma, and I've seen a courage there that you don't have.